Joe Krabbenhoft is white. Had he struck Juwan Howard, Krabbenhoft would have been fired Sunday night. He would be portrayed as the second coming of Derek Chauvin. Howard has somehow been cast as the victim. Calls for his removal as Michigan head coach are being framed as a racist overreaction. For white bigots and black supporters of black inferiority, holding Howard to the same standard as a white coach would be racist. Like Al Capone, Howard is untouchable. He will not be punished. He will not be punished for his bad behavior. In a year or two, Michigan will fire Howard for NCAA tournament evasion. Things have changed. And so the whole Bobby Knight analogy makes no sense. It's an excuse. Hell, and again, just like I brought up, even before Bobby Knight, Woody Hayes got fired in 1978 for doing far less than what Juwan Howard did yesterday. Woody Hayes didn't spark a brawl between the two teams. He threw a punch at a guy in a full uniform and helmet. So all of this, so-and-so, these white guys got away with it 30, 40 years ago. That's BS. There's a new standard, a new set of rules, and we all know there's no one with a brain who would deny that if Krabbenhoft had hit Howard, he would have been fired Sunday. He might have been fired before he left the arena.
I'm not ashamed of what I'm doing. In fact, I'm very proud of what I'm doing. I'm very proud of my faith. I'm very proud, and the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, I think people have to hear that, because I think a lot of what I'm no different, Jason, than the truck driver, than the school teacher, than the healthcare worker, than the person working construction, whatever, that they don't either medically or religiously don't feel like taking the vaccine, and now they're being forced to, or else they're going to lose their job. And I think that's a shame. And there's many referees that didn't want to take the vaccine, and there's many referees that were forced to because they have children, they have families, and they have bills to pay. And I'm not going to get into the NBA and their position. You'll have to talk to them. I'm not here to even talk negatively about the NBA, but because that's not why I'm here. I'm here to say that there's a lot of people that didn't want to take this in the NBA, that you call it whatever you want, coerced, forced, and now they're taking it, and now there's boosters, and they're scared. And I'm not.
You reffed Michael Jordan's return from his first retirement, correct?
Yes.
I was at that game as well. I worked that game as well. Yeah, in Indianapolis. Yeah.
I'll never forget that. Well, who in the sport doesn't respect him? Of course. But we didn't know he was coming. That was just another game. I was on the road. I was on a 12-day trip, whatever, We get a call the next night saying, just to give you a heads up, might be a little different tomorrow night. Rumor has it Mike is going to play. And that's all they told us. Well, you get to the arena an hour, 2 hours before the game, it was packed. And then you walk into the arena an hour before the game, the place is already sold out. That was what Mike brought to the game. It was wonderful to see him back. And I remember, I think they got beat that game, if I remember right. I think Indiana beat them that game. But it was just, it was something, a young kid like me will always remember.
This is my home. I was born and raised here. 5 generations, like I said in the campaign video. And I have a deep affection and love for Minnesota and the Twin Cities. And there's a crisis of leadership. It's that simple. The grandiosity of the federal government is undermining the meaning of community. And the arrogance of globalism is undermining the value of country. I'm not ready to give up on the American dream. I'm not ready to give up my American citizenship for this global fantasy. And I'm not ready to give up my stake in this country either. So, we're at war. There's no doubt about it. The line has been drawn. The game is on. And people have encouraged me to jump in and step in and fight. And I'm willing to do that.
We will control at least one part of the legislative branch of the government. We will not control the executive branch, but we'll be in constant warfare with it because we have the purse string. The House of Representatives has the appropriations. If it's not appropriate by the House, you can choke down the Biden administration by controlling the House appropriations process and the investigative. I think you'll see intense investigations. I think you'll see, in the situation of Ashli Babbitt, I think you'll start to see potential criminal referrals on that. I think you'll see this committee totally change its focus on exactly what happened on January 6th, who knew about it, who understood what was going to happen and looked the other way. I think you'll see all that, but you'll see that, I think, from a legislative point of view from the House. We still don't control the executive branch, obviously, and we obviously don't control the courts. Now, that being said, I think that this is going to take on a totally different direction, and people have had a bellyful of how the prisoners have been treated.
And I'm not saying Phil Mickelson's going to take a knee. I'm not saying he'll be that kind of woke, but will he sell out his country in the name of greed? Will he take his alleged victimization and exaggerate it and use it to grab more money and power for himself? That's what he's done here. Oh my God, the PG, I don't get my streaming rights. I don't get this. We should be making X amount. And yes, I've made 90 some odd million on the PGA Tour and another 200 to 300 million from my sponsors. But I'm a victim here. I've been exploited by the PGA Tour. It's like a slave plantation. So I'm going to cut a deal with people he described as scary mofos.
There's three big examples that I think I wasn't aware of just the sort of decisions they made. Stan Musial, I knew about him as a St. Louis guy. He won a World Series in 1942, won MVP in 1943, won another World Series in 1944, and enlisted in the military in January of 1945. Finished up with that, won a World Series in 46 and the MVP that year. Literally in the height of his athletic prowess, he took a break and said, I need to go help America. There's a heavyweight boxer named Joe Louis, donated $100,000. That's 1.7 million bucks in today's dollars. Decided that wasn't good enough, so he enlisted. And he went and did exhibitions basically to raise the morale of soldiers across the world in order to help us through the war. You know, the guy that I think doesn't get talked about enough is Warren Spahn, a 17-time All-Star, Cy Young winner, Hall of Famer, and the thing he's most proud of is his Purple Heart.
Like I call it, the Cindy Brady syndrome. There's a lot of people that are loquacious and can talk your ears off until they're forced to be in that position. They see the red light and they freeze like Cindy Brady on the game show. I don't know if you take Sean Payton right off the bat from an NFL sideline and you say, okay, you're our number one guy. Look, John Madden to me is the greatest who ever did it at football. But you actually go back to those early games when he was paired up with Bob Costas and actually Vin Scully. It took him about 3 years to get to become John Madden. And that's after like about 5 years of being a very good pitch man for Miller Lite, where he always busts through walls at the end of the commercials. I always tell people this. Being a broadcaster, for everyone that doesn't do it, it looks easy. And the first time you do it, you have to fight to even get words out. So I don't know if I take a guy that's never done this and elevate him to the absolute top spot.
Is Vladimir Putin, is he the bad guy in all of this as he's being portrayed in the media?
Well, I would say this. It really depends on how you think, right? What your worldview is. From the standpoint of a free society, of a democratic society that thrives on free markets, the West, right, in short, yes, clearly. From his standpoint, the way he thinks about the world, he probably thinks of himself more as a messianic figure, someone who has almost like a historic role that in restoring a 1,000-year tradition of Russian supremacy and sort of a status of a global player, a superpower. So I think from his standpoint, he feels attacked by the West, corroded by the West, lied to by the West. And that's the narrative. And that's actually, I really believe he believes that. I don't think it's a game.
No, I'm really not, especially as it relates to Vitaly, who is the older brother. He has been active in politics. He's been the mayor of Kiev for several years now. So when you are a man that has been elected or has a position like that, there is at least a duty to stay behind and do your part. Now, before we start calling him General Schwarzkopf, maybe these are just some well-timed photo ops. I have to tell you, I give him a lot of credit because he seems like a very sincere individual. This is interesting to me. American athletes, when they put on a T-shirt or do a hashtag, or they put on a T-shirt with the hashtag for some movement, they are just given all the credit in the world. Like, wow, that's courageous. Look at the stand. They don't do anything. And it reminds me of that Thomas Sowell tweet that ESPN told me to take down, that basically activism is a way for a lot of useless people to feel important, even at the expense of their actions having some grave consequences.
Van Jefferson, and I don't think it's any coincidence that Van Jefferson seems to be a believer in terms of his public proclamations. Him and his wife are high school sweethearts. They talk about God. He says that he prays with his mom before every game. I don't think that that's a coincidence, particularly for a young man who's only 25 and already has his third child with his wife. He's not taking the Johnny Appleseed approach to fatherhood like a lot of athletes have done. But the other thing is, do you, if you don't want to get married, just like, do you have the discipline to do what it takes to prevent that? And a lot of athletes, as is the case with a lot of men, and I've certainly been there before in my life, are just irresponsible. Right? It's not particularly difficult. It's like, this is 2022. We know how babies are made. And after a guy has his first quote unquote mistake, right? His first oops. By the time he gets to his 9th child by the 7th different mother, it's clear like this is not random or chance.